Welcome back to Lights Out. I'm John Weiss,
I'm Andy Henderson.
and today is part two of our employees and workforce discussion. Last session, we met with Melissa from Blue Signal, and we had some great insights around things that you can do better in your network and things that you can polish on your resume to help you stand out. But today, Andy and I are going to go a little bit deeper and talk about some specific trends and things that companies are doing to not only court new employees, but make the experience better and really change the way they engage with employees. I want to start by one of the trends that you and I are both familiar with. And it's this mentality of this team of teams notion. You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah, there was the book that the general, I think it's General Christie wrote, where he was describing different tactics and approaches that he took in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that is really relevant in not only manufacturing, but business as a whole today, where we're empowering employees to make split-second independent decisions that impact the broader business without identifying a problem and necessarily having to wait for management to give the approval to go ahead and flip the reset switch or something like that.
Yeah. One of the things I remember from that book is he's talking about how quickly how effectively the terrorists were using social media to organize and stage attacks, and they using traditional organizational strategies. They just weren't able to respond fast enough to be effective and taking a more distributed approach and empowering people to make decisions. They were able to more effectively counteract the different terrorist groups.
That's exactly right. So our military was at a deficit because we would actually have to sit in a holding pattern as something was unfolding right before those folks. They'd have to quite literally sit and wait to get the green light to engage, disengage, whatever the tactical decision was going to be. And some of this now is being adopted, and over the last few years this has started, but I think it's continuing to gain momentum where we're rolling this back into corporate America. And Deloitte mentioned in their human capital research that it's not only happening at the bottom of the pyramid, if you will, where folks are actually doing the work, but it's also happening at the top of the pyramid where we have our C whatever O's. And Deloitte actually calls it the symphonic C-suite, where it's all of the C levels working in harmony to cross the gaps or bridge the gaps that exist when we have these siloed groups within businesses. If you think about the struggles between IT and OT, well, now there are a lot of companies that are embracing this mentality to let those folks work more, let's say, with more agility between the two groups.
Yeah, I think back on prior company, right? They were definitely trying to empower employees. Really big organization, lots of layers of hierarchy, really trying to empower employees, and it kept promoting the notion of failing, right? Being okay with failure. So take some action. It's okay if it fails, as long as we learn from it and we bounce back and are able to be effective the next time around. I think it's not exactly the same, but it's in a similar vein.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about empowering people to be better at what they do. And so last week, or on the last session, excuse me, we talked a little bit about empowering people but also looking for new soft skills, if you remember that. This is a really good correlation, I think, between the soft skills that companies are looking for and how those relate to these new expectations around being able to make faster decisions on your own or make better judgment calls on your own. It all goes back to what we talked about last time, which was around companies looking for folks who have sharper critical thinking skills, have been in problem solving type roles before. They just have those traits, right, that people are looking for. Yeah.
Yep.
And then a pretty interesting one around rewards. So there's a trend in the market where organizations are focusing more on custom tailored experiences for employees, but not just around, it sounds kind of fluffy, I know, not just around um, um, experience in the day to day of, is your seat comfortable enough or something like that, right? But
I've been meaning to talk with my management about this.
but experience around, do you feel comfortable in understanding your growth here at this organization, and the whole employee experience around knowing how you're going to elevate your career, and encouraging people to try new things and new roles. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's one of the benefits of a large organization too, is that there is the possibility for people to move around and try new things, so that if you feel like you're becoming stale wherever you are, there's always another opportunity somewhere else that you can go try something different. I think right now I'm in a smaller organization. We're a new company, and this is a common conversation that we're having is what does a career path look like? What does growth look like inside of our company? And I've worked at other small companies in the past, and I always hate it when I say this, but you're kind of waiting on the next person to lead the company, or something to happen to them, so that there was an opening for you to move into. And I think so that's a challenge that in small companies we have to deal with, is how do you retain key talent, make and give them those new opportunities, those new experiences, um, within the obviously within the scope that you have, that you're able to do it within.
Right. And very relevant to manufacturing, especially the point of being a small company, right? Not a ton of headcount. As you know, the vast majority of manufacturers in this country have less than 20 people on staff, right? So this is not just a technique that should be embraced by big companies, right? If you want the best talent and you want to stay, let's say, competitive and not lose people to your competitors, you have to embrace this kind of mentality, even if you're a small shop, right? Encourage people to work more than just one piece of equipment or piece of machinery, and give them the ability to learn more, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, one of the things that we do is diversity of projects. I mean, we do have some people who become the expert in an area and they focus there, but we try to mix it up so that people get an opportunity to work on something slightly different. They don't get pigeonholed into one type of task, one type of outcome. And then the other thing that I like to do is ask people on my team, what do you want? Where do you want to go? How do you want to see your career, your path open up? And in some cases, that's a relatively new question, and the answers are mixed and varied. But there's definitely a group of people who know that that they're interested in a management path. And so as the company grows and we bring on more projects, more customers, then there's more opportunity for the team to expand, and then that opens up new management possibilities as well. Plus, there's also giving people the experience to mentor co-ops or interns on a team. That's always a good one and a fun one for people.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Deloitte calls a personalized, agile, and holistic approach to managing people and in defining career paths for folks. And by the way, this is no small number of people we're talking about when we look at this from a manufacturing or heavy industry perspective, right? Just manufacturing alone in North America employs 8% of the workforce, right? That's a whole lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so this is a good segue into another thing that I thought was really interesting. And one trend that's happening right now is that companies are going what they call outside the enterprise to seek help or seek needs, if you will. And as an individual, you can contribute to a company in more ways than just going and applying on the website for a full-time job. Here's some stats from a Deloitte survey as well, the same human capital report. They said 37% of respondents expected a rise in contractors, 33% a rise in freelancers, and 28% growth in gig workers from the gig economy. So people who are not real contractors, they're not freelancers. They're people that are doing side hustles, if you will, side work, just gig type economy work, which I don't know about you. I think that's fascinating. 28% of companies are expecting to spend money there.
Yeah, and so what sectors are these companies? Were these all manufacturing companies?
This is no, this is just a broad market
Yeah,
research,
okay.
not just manufacturers.
Because I was thinking, how does that apply to manufacturing? Where do those freelancers and gig workers work in manufacturing? Because going back to the skills gap, right?
Right.
People, there's a lot of the folks inside of manufacturing are highly skilled, and so it'd be interesting if one day there's like everybody has a profile of their accreditations and skills, and they're able to move from job to job. I don't know. You think about all the training that needs to happen, but maybe that's something that could work inside of manufacturing. But no, I agree with you. That is an interesting statistic for business at large.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think when we look at the manufacturing world and in supply chains and how does the gig economy and how do independent individuals contribute to that, it to me that alone is such an interesting topic, because if you think about how many folks like us have 3D printers at our houses, right? And the cooler people that have maybe metal printers and stuff like this. I don't know if that's quite attainable yet in the commercial space or in the consumer space, but you know where I'm going with this, right? There's a lot of stuff that we can do as individuals, or even folks who own, one, two, 3-person type job shops that have the ability to actually crank out, industrial parts, right? On different types of machining equipment. So there's a guy that I know here in South Carolina. He actually has a bunch of stuff at his house. He's got like a couple lathes. He's got a CNC machine. He's got all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. And he's just a hobbyist.
I met a guy one time who was this was back at the peak of the fidget spinner craze. He was making fidget spinners on a small like hobbyist CNC in his garage, and where I met him was actually at a show where he was looking to buy a professional grade, like an industrial grade CNC machine to expand this business, because it had been, he had found some little niche and was able to exploit it, and he was making a fair amount of money, enough to support a bigger business. It was really interesting. And the other thing that what you were describing there made me think about, there are the companies out there. Make Time was one, but I think they just recently were purchased by Xometry, Xometrey, and the I'm oversimplifying it obviously, but the notion is that suppliers would come and say, I have this type of expertise and capacity within my shop, and customers or say an OEM or somebody who needs parts would come and say, I need this kind of part to be made. And the purpose of that platform is to marry those suppliers with capacity and customers with a need together.
Really?
So something like what you're describing, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the way the gig economy it plays out in manufacturing.
Yeah, it seems like it. I think that's a great example of the gig economy at work. It's fascinating to think about the amount of people that are out of work right now, right? It's statistically things are getting a little bit better, but we've got a long way to go. And it's really interesting to me, at least, to think, I didn't consider this before, how people are really seeking help from folks, not just within the 4 walls of the factory, right? There are so many other ways you can contribute and form a relationship with companies and organizations. So pretty interesting. one part of all this, of course, and we touched on it in our last session, but not really deeply. It's the change management element that comes along with adopting technology and changing all of the things that we're talking about changing, right? And I sent a poll out on LinkedIn to my network. I'm sure you saw it on LinkedIn. Um, and what it was essentially a poll that asked people, what do you see as being the largest challenge for adopting industrial IoT type technology? And where I was going with that is I was going to take what the challenges were and relate it back to the human component, right? The needs that people can bring and solve those challenges for companies. But I actually didn't have to connect many dots here because the answer was directly related to people. It was change management.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always, and what I see, right, there's often a psychology part of change management that's the most difficult, just getting people to overcome this notion of the way we've always done things. So but the science of change management is much deeper than that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
really good stuff out there, and a lot of really knowledgeable people in the area that have process workflows. They have all types of planning materials to help in
So
that regard.
if we look at how organizations are going to mitigate this change management need, and we touched on this just a little bit, but it's there are two things that companies are doing. They are upskilling existing workers and they're finding new workers with new sets of skills, right? When you look at upskilling existing workers, it's a very different task and a very different effort than finding new people with new skill sets, right? And there's pros and cons to both. It's almost like a brownfield and greenfield project, right? One is a retrofit and one's a blank canvas, and both are have pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but
No, I like the analogy. That's a good green and brownfield employees. That's
yeah.
or workers. Yeah.
Well, where I'm going with this is really, when you have your existing employees, right? There's lots of good things that come with that. They know the business, they know the processes, they know the inner workings of an organization, they know the distribution model if that's how you sell. They know your suppliers if you're expecting products in and parts in, right? And so there's lots of great knowledge and tribal knowledge that you can't substitute that with somebody who has technical wherewithal but doesn't know your business, for example, right? But there are of course challenges that come with teaching the like I said a couple of weeks back, teaching the some old dogs new tricks, if you will, right? Last time I said that I was talking about companies, now I'm talking about people. But the reality is changing and retraining processes and retraining how to do things is always tough.
Yeah. There could be a lengthy conversation just about that, where it could, because do you, as a company, do you look for outside help, say colleges, technical universities, that sort of thing? Do you try to develop training plans internally? So that could be that's another good conversation that could take, we could spend a lot of time just on that topic alone of how do you do that upskilling of your people,
Yeah, totally agreed. And for today, when I'm trying my best to keep my hat on, that's looking at skills and what companies would want to look for in people, right? To actually make this happen. And from my point of view, and this is really relevant to both of us, by the way, Andy, because we are both responsible for teams of people in our day jobs, if you will, right?
Yep.
When we're not wearing our lights out capes and fighting crime at night. And so we do a lot of this as people leaders, as managers. And when you think about upskilling workers, to me, I would be looking for individuals who show strong initiative, are good critical thinkers. They're independent folks that can take a problem and solve it with minimal oversight. When you look at those kinds of soft skills and you couple that with deep domain expertise of the business, I think those are the type of people that are going to quickly elevate their careers within organizations.
Yeah, I'd say I'll also look for a little bit of frustration, right? The folks who say, "Gee, this has been working, but it's just not good enough. I know there's a better way of doing it." Those are always good candidates as well.
Yeah, definitely. They identify a gap, or they identify a pain point. And the best ones are the ones who identify a pain point and make a suggestion on how to fix it, right?
Oh,
Not just
absolutely.
fix
Yeah.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's key. Come with some sort of solution, maybe, and then we can have a debate on what the solution is and the pluses and minuses, but have an idea, have an opinion. Absolutely.
And the only other thing that I would add too, it's when it comes to upskilling and retraining the workforce, I think these organizations are looking for people that take initiative to learn. So if you're concerned about technology coming into your environment and you want to get ahead of it and you want to make sure that you are on the right side of whatever change may come from this kind of adoption of technology, embrace it, get ahead of it, show your leadership that you're interested in it. You want to learn how to use the tools. You want to learn how to make the most out of them to be better at your job. That kind of mentality, I think, is what will very quickly get you, higher and higher within the organization as they adopt new technologies.
And it goes back to the beginning of the conversation too around empowerment. I mean, because a lot of people may have those ideas, but they're not comfortable sharing them because they might think it's a bad idea or they're going to get shot down or whatever, right? But so having a culture and an environment that encourages that and empowers people to come and bring those ideas, that's critical as well. That I think is something that gets built over time. Like it doesn't just happen overnight. People in meetings, people have to be asked to express their thoughts and ideas, and then that can't be met with opposition. You have to encourage and foster, uh, even for people to feel like they can do that sort of thing in the first place.
I remember just thinking back to days in school, right? University, even elementary school. I can't tell you how many times people would stress the fact that if you have a question, ask it, because there's probably 4, 5, 6, 10 other people with the same question, right? And the same is true at work. How many times have we been on a call or in a meeting with somebody, and we hang up or we leave the building, and you look to your buddy, your colleague, whatever. It's, what the hell did they mean when they said whatever? And oh yeah, actually I didn't catch that. I'm not sure, right? And now there's a gap of knowledge because nobody stood up and said, I'm sorry, can you explain what you mean here, or how can you tell me how that actually impacts so and so. So it's great point. Yeah, great point. So the flip side of this is the the new employees. We're looking for, as organizations, typically similar skills, right? We talked a lot about critical thinking. um, I used a phrase, people are becoming dashboard gurus. I don't know if that's cool or not, so I haven't decided if I want to coin that yet. But I was writing an article and I said, we're going from being machine operators to dashboard gurus in many ways, because it's hands off the controls, it's hands off a lot of stuff, and it's digesting and internalizing and driving insights from dashboards. That's really what a lot of roles and uh, things are becoming as we adopt this kind of technology, right? So haven't decided if I'm going to trademark that yet. Dashboard gurus, we'll find out.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I think I typically, I don't know that I would call myself a dashboard fan, right? And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is, um, I always, I, I have a belief that what people search through and they use dashboards looking for answers, looking for actions to go do and take, and um, and those you can find them, but it's hard to scale it largely, right? Because it always requires a person to be using the dashboards and going through them. And so I am a big proponent of this idea of let's use some other technology. Maybe we think of it as more advanced technology to do some of the analysis, the thing that people are doing in dashboards, but do it automatically, and therefore people become less um, they stop using the dashboard as much, I guess is my point where I'm going.
Yeah, I think the dashboards as a thing are not inherently bad, right, or evil or unproductive. I think
No.
the biggest challenge that I've seen, and now we're going a little bit off topic, but I think that's okay. The biggest challenge I've seen is that people get machines connected, they stream data to a dashboard, and all right, we're doing IoT, job's done, right? And then a year later, everyone's pissed at everybody because no value, came of the project.
Yeah,
And
we spent how many dollars and what did we get for it? Yeah.
exactly right. And you got another set of eyes to tell you what the machine operators could tell you, right? It didn't really do anybody any good. And if you and we'll talk about this in the coming weeks, but if you look at a maturity curve as you adopt this technology, it's very easy to start on obviously you have to start by getting connected, but a lot of people stop the journey way too fast because they think, aha, mission accomplished, right? We did it, boys. And that's not the case, right? If you
Yeah.
stop too soon and you only roll with the beginnings of what could be a much larger project, you're never
Yeah.
going to see the return.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point for sure. And I think that's why it's important to, before you even think about IoT, and we really are off topic at this point, before you talk about IoT and start doing the connection for the sake of doing a connection, you really should be thinking about what are the outcomes I'm trying to achieve? What's the, why even bother with this in the first place?
Absolutely.
And so if you do that, then I feel like you'd be less prone to get to the point and say we can put an IoT stamp on this and move on. I think, but yeah,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. The dashboards, they're not they serve a purpose, and um, they do have value in them,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think this comes full circle back to as the new workforce enters this realm of industrial companies, manufacturers, the skills that they bring. I believe they're going to be more focused on using these kinds of technologies hands on. And I think companies are looking for people that have good technical wherewithal. I'm not saying everybody has to be a software engineer, not at all, right? People that can understand charts and graphs and find their way around dashboarding applications, people that are good with software just naturally, they know how to click around. Um, and people that have the soft skills that we've been talking about, like the critical thinking skills, that they could look at a dashboard and actually make the connection between what is the data telling me and holy cow, I better go do something right now. Um, and I think those are some of the key things that folks will be looking for out of new employees.
Yeah. So again, it gets back to where do you even look for that? Like so in a new employee, what's it going to be on the resume that should key a company in to say that person is going to have those skills or going to have those capabilities? And it's probably like, projects that they've done before. Is it if they're straight out of college, were they involved in teams, I don't know, I'm an engineer, so I think about like Formula SAE teams, the groups that are building cars or solar vehicles or whatever, right? They're gonna have a lot of those experiences. Maybe not with dashboarding because you're doing those on one-offs, but they're gonna have those. They're gonna have that knowledge of they're gonna be creative on this, by themselves. They're gonna have some amount of critical thinking, problem solving.
Yeah, I think it's even the tools, right? The software tools. Are you proficient in Microsoft PowerPoint? Do you know how to use Microsoft Word very well, right? These are things that for us, for you and I in the corporate world, uh, it's second nature because we live and breathe in PowerPoint. At least I do. Way too many hours every day and to nauseum. But the for for a lot of folks, we take that for granted, right? There are a lot of people that, especially in industrial workplaces, that that's not so second nature to them, right? And so I think even just showing that how to use those kinds of tools can go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So I think we're actually just about out of time, Andy. Um, I hope I hope this has been insightful and helpful for the listeners. If you work for a manufacturer and you're hiring, we would love to hear from you. What did you look for, and what are you looking for? What made you pick the right candidate? Right. Any feedback you guys have, we'd love to hear it. Drop us a comment, like and subscribe, so next time we're launching, probably 2 weeks from now, because that's what we always do. And until then, my friends, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.